Anyway, how is everyone doing tonight? I'm happy to report that we have a lovely evening, even though we have a CIT meeting, because usually we have 3 feet of snow, or at least sometimes we do. So I'm Ann Porter, and if some of you don't know me, I am part of the Culture Impact team, and I come under the education arm of this team. So I'm going to be making a few announcements. Excuse my glasses, I can't see without them. Just so you know, this is our last meeting of the quarter, but we will be having some exciting meetings coming up this summer. So stay tuned for that, and we will keep you in the loop. And then the second thing I want to tell you about is our last meeting, we had Back to School for Parents book that was put out by Focus on the Family. I know that some of you purchased that, and your purchase is here, so that will be at the back table. You, if you have not paid, Linda will be back there, and she'd be happy to take your money. It's $7 each, and if you have not ordered one and you would still like one, you can also do that this evening. If you came in a side door and you didn't sign up on our email list and you would like to receive our emails, be sure to visit our back table and get your name on our database. And then we're also asking for school district. If you know the school district that you're in, if you could put that on that information on as well. And here's why. I feel like our Culture Impact team, that is an area we really want to focus on, is education. And I think we all understand why. And so it's going to be helpful to us as we begin to plan for some of our summer meetings if we have your school board district. And just one last thing I want to say about that. Our sign-up sheet is unrelated to Ted Mish's sign-up that you signed up last week on. They're two separate things. I think there was some confusion about that. So I am just curious to know, how many of you were able to watch the Republican Study Committee of Colorado hearing that was broadcast on Saturday? Did any of you see that? Okay. That was it was dealing with Colorado election irregularities, which we know there was a plethora. And it was done by Dr. Frank and Dr. Eastman, and it was very revealing. We are going to send out a link on our email, which is why you want to make sure you're on our email list so you can get some of these things. I have not watched it yet, but a couple of the team members have, and they said it was unbelievable, the information that was brought forth during that meeting. As you came in, you were given a handout on Return to Liberty's Freedom Prom, which is going to be held on 5/22. I want to introduce Eric Davis. Eric, stand up. Eric is the promoter of this. He's putting this together, if you don't know Eric. He'll be hanging around maybe a little bit after if you have questions, but be sure to get that flyer. This is a chance to help support the outreach of Generation Z. And please consider volunteering. I know we have people here who like to decorate or who just be chaperones, but this is going to be a wonderful event on March 22nd. And that's coming up really soon. So if you're interested in doing that. What did I say? Oh, I'm sorry. Forgive me. They both begin with M, though. So May 22nd. Okay, we're going to do questions tonight a little bit differently. Usually I stand down here and am the microphone Nazi and won't let you hold the microphone. We're going to do that a little differently. If you have a question for our panel, we have cards in the back. You can just go back and get a card, fill it out, and then I will do the Q&A with our panel, and I'll just read off your questions to them. Okay? So I just want to thank you for being here tonight, and then I want to introduce Dave Riffle to you, who will take over.
Thank you, Ann. I'm not taking over the world, just the meeting. So we'd like to open, first of all, with prayer, and then we're going to do the pledge. Father God, we just thank you. Thank you that you have a plan and a purpose. You said that the government would rest upon your Son's shoulder, and of its increase there would be no end. So we thank you, Lord, that you are interested in government, in good and godly government, and we thank you for the youth who are also interested in promoting your values to their colleagues. So we thank you for this meeting tonight. Look forward to what you'll teach us in Jesus' name. Amen. So if we could stand, we have a flag over here and one on the stage. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. I have just one announcement. I am finishing my term as the coordinator of the Practical Government School up at Charis Bible College. And we are putting on an event which I almost hesitated to announce because it came up on a rather short notice, and the deadline to register was really today, and we're extending it till tomorrow. So here's the slide. If you would get out your camera phone, take a picture of that slide, that is the event, and it is a candidates academy. If you have thought of running for public office, if you've thought of running for a school board, we're especially focusing on those, and it will equip you. And so we would be glad to have you register to attend. There's no cost. You'll buy your own lunch, and it's up in Woodland Park at the Charis campus, and it'll be from 9 to 4 on Saturday, May 8. I see that there was no person's name listed on there to which you register, so I'll fix that, and we'll make an announcement at the end. So now I would like to introduce to you our guests for this evening. First of all, Lacey Williams, who's the Regional Director of the Turning Point USA chapters. And Turning Point USA, you're probably familiar with that Charlie Kirk was the one who founded these with 1,500 chapters on campuses of high schools and colleges across the U.S. Wonderful organization of young people who are sharing their faith values with their classmates. And so I'm going to have Lacey introduce the chapter leaders. Let's again welcome Lacey.
Hello, everyone. So nice to be around people that actually like us. It's typically not what we deal with. So thank you all for coming, and thank you so much to our pastor and everybody that has had us here today. Beautiful church. So first and foremost, to my left, I'm actually going to have you guys introduce yourselves, if that's okay. This is Gabby.
Hi, I'm Gabby, and I am the Colorado State University Vice President of Turning Point USA. I'm in my third year of college there. And yeah, I've also been our social media person, helped with some chief of staff stuff, organizing back when I thought I didn't want to show my face on campus, but things changed, so.
She does fantastic with videos. Basically, anything I ask of Gabby is done. Incredibly grassroots. So give her a round of applause, please.
Thank you.
To her left is Kevin LaRusso.
Hi, I'm Kevin. I am the president of the Colorado State chapter. I have formerly been the vice president, the campus coordinator. I've basically been involved with Turning Point since I left the military. I was actually down at Carson for the longest time, so I left Carson. Thank you.
He was in the Army for 6 years?
Yeah, something like that.
He's the old guy on the panel. Sorry, y'all.
But yeah, so I've been involved with Turning Point basically since I set foot on Colorado's campus, and it's just been a wonderful opportunity to provide people with the ability to actually speak out and have a voice on campus.
Amelia Johnston.
Hi, I'm Amelia Johnston. My voice decided not to work today, so I apologize. I am the vice president over at CU Boulder, and I've been involved with Turning Point since high school when I helped start up our chapter at a Legacy High School down in Broomfield.
Good job. Cameron O'Day.
Hi guys, I'm Cameron, and I'm the chapter president and a senior campus coordinator at CU Boulder.
And Brian Ramirez.
Hello everyone, my name is Brian. I'm the president of the campus chapter at UCCS, your local chapter.
Extra cheer for that one.
I have also have experience with Turning Point. I've done campus coordinators. I have helped to recruit for a few conferences that we have had in the past before COVID. We try to be as active as we can in our chapter here at the Springs. Some of you, maybe you recognize me, maybe not. I was at the Lincoln Dinner 2 years ago when Charlie Kirk was here. He spoke there. If so, it's nice to see you again. But that's about me.
Well, welcome, guys. So we're going to kind of shift gears just slightly. I'm going to show you guys a small PowerPoint. Most of you know Turning Point. Most of you know Charlie Kirk. But what do Turning Point chapters do? So I'm going to shine a little light on that real quick. Hold on. All right. So you guys obviously know this guy. I'm actually going to talk to our students about their first time meeting Charlie. For me, I first met Charlie. I think the first conversation I had, I actually told these guys in the car. We were in Newport Beach, and he wore shoes to the beach, and I said, "Why are you wearing your shoes? You should take your shoes off." Probably not the best thing to say to a very important speaker. But then I followed it up. I tried to recover. I was like, oh my gosh, I'm so excited to hear everything you have to say. And this is before Charlie was getting mobbed by tons of people. So you guys over here, what was it like for the first time meeting Charlie?
I don't know that I have like the most inspiring Charlie Kirk story. Hopefully someone does. My only experience actually speaking to Charlie one-on-one was when he came to Colorado State University last fall when we did Culture War with Kimberly Guilfoyle and Donald Trump Jr., which was a total blast. Everyone, all the volunteers of our school who helped with the event, we got to hang out with them after, take pictures, chat with Kimberly and Don and Charlie, and we took pictures with Charlie, and he complimented me on the efficiency of my selfies. So that's my experience
The girl
meeting Charlie
takes a
Kirk.
good selfie.
I guess that's an important skill to have.
Kevin, I know you worked kind of one-on-one with Charlie on Culture War last fall, or I guess 2 falls ago now. What was that like?
It was a lot of fun, in all honesty. We had, like Gabby mentioned, we had the massive Donald Trump Jr. and Charlie Kirk event. 2 years ago, we had about 3,000 people show up for the event, a lot of whom were protesters, and him and I just talked for a couple minutes about the fact that, we've been getting a lot of pushback. At the time, CSU's president, about 2 weeks before our event, had put out a letter that had associated our Turning Point chapter with white supremacy on campus. This was from President Joyce McConnell, went out to about 60,000 alumni, basically, associating us with the white supremacists on campus, if there even are any. But yeah, no, we just kind of talked about the fact that the university was clearly targeting us. He wanted to make the event big. He wanted to make sure the protests were big. We achieved that goal, and he was just pretty stoked about it. So that's the most I've ever had one-on-one with him.
And many of the chapter leaders on the left have yet to meet Charlie, but it will be happening probably in August when we do our chapter leadership summit. So it's going to be really exciting. Brian, did you have anything to add?
Yeah, I've met Charlie a couple of times too. He's a very brilliant guy. It's a good way to put it. He's very eloquent, and I remember we talked a lot about, well, not a lot, but we talked about immigration and how, as a person of color, I'm supposed to hold certain views on immigration and on freedom and free markets and such, and how, since I am someone who doesn't hold those views, the left doesn't really see me as a tool in their shed and more of an obstacle on their way. And, he had some great things to say. Yeah.
Yeah, Charlie's fantastic. If you ever get the chance to meet him or pick his brain, make sure you talk to him about your favorite book, because he's probably read it. He's incredibly well read. So this is actually an older video I'm going to be showing you. This is quite a bit older, but I kind of am going to show it to watch the growth we've had over the past however many years. This was like 2 years into it, so let's take a look really quick.
That this generation can be and will be won over by our set of ideas. We're kind of at a turning point in this country. You all set? I started an organization, Turning Point USA, 2.5 years ago, around 2 key values: free markets and limited government. What we're looking at is the most independent generation in American history. And young people all across the country are looking for an alternative point of view. They're sick and tired of big government telling them how to live their life. They're struggling under the burden of student loans. They can't find jobs. They're sick of the government reading their text messages. There is a almost countercultural, counter-institutional grassroots movement of students rising up. I saw the potential, people in the trenches fighting this fight on a daily basis.
Charlie Kirk is saying enough is enough.
We're on over 1,000 campuses nationwide, college and high school. We hosted the largest Young Women's Leadership Summit in the country with over 125 of our top young women leaders. We hosted the largest Young Latino Leadership Summit event in the country. We will be there out in the public square, recruiting, evangelizing, persuading, engaging, collecting information, registering voters, persistent, aggressive, and effective grassroots activism.
So that said 1,000 chapters. We're actually on 2,000 college and high school campuses across the country. So that's a pretty big move in that amount of time. Actually, in the Rockies territory, which is my territory, I cover all of Colorado, southern Wyoming, and northern New Mexico. So I'm a busy girl. We've got 37 chapters across my territory. We have just about every college except for Adams State. And of course, the Air Force Academy, there's a little bit different rules up there. But also, another thing you guys probably saw there, and we'll talk about this here in a second, is our Young Women's Leadership Summit. That was 125 people. We're almost at 2,000 young women. This year, we're having a huge list of speakers. If you're a female, which please don't identify the other way, we don't do that here. Two genders, right? We will be having a wide range of speakers. One of the big ones is Kayleigh McEnany. It's going to be really exciting. All right. Yes, very awesome. Here, let me see if
This
this will
generation
play. I think
can
this is
be
one to play
and
again.
will be won over by our.
All right, so we play offense with a sense of urgency to win America's culture war. Yes, we do focus on economic issues, but there's definitely an interconnection. I don't know if you guys have read any Andrew Breitbart, but culture is upstream of politics. Everything we do with culture will affect how we vote in the future. So that's why it's so important to be going to these major institutions. Church is going to be an up-and-comer for Turning Point Faith. But college campuses are that culture point. We are a 501c3 though, however. So whenever I get people on the phone, pretty frequently we start talking about Donald Trump, which is great. Love it. However, we're not gonna stump for any political party. We're about the ideas. That's a good differentiation between us and the C4, which is Turning Point Action. So just making that distinction, let's talk about the ideas because there is a life for politics after Donald Trump. I think I was asking my students before the election, what does it look like politically for conservatives after Donald Trump? We're leading the fight now. He certainly made an impact, but how do we push the needle forward? So, all right, so what do we believe in? School choice. We love capitalism. Free speech, our Second Amendment rights, socialism sucks, and school choice. However, we talk very openly about American exceptionalism and our faith as well. And Big Gov does suck. I'm gonna actually hand this over to Kevin a little bit. He's a poli-sci student and very well versed on the political spectrum. So this is kind of what our political science teachers are teaching us, what it looks like, communism and left wing, equality in society, and then on the far right is like fascism, which apparently only fascism exists on the right. Not true. This is another variation of that. Now we're going to look at the real political spectrum. Kevin, if you kind of want to drum in and give a small variation of what this is.
Yeah, so this is just pretty simple up here. We believe here that big government sucks, and big government kind of can appear on both sides. So basically what it comes down to is, are you advocating for something that is authoritarian, as in the government has control of it, or are you advocating for something that preaches individual liberty, individual responsibility, and the freedom to make your own choices? So the farther you go left on this spectrum, the more government involvement there is. Now, what the lefties will tell you is that on the furthest end of the left, it's just roses and daisies. Everybody gets everything they want. Nobody has to work. Anybody can be an artist all they want. But when in reality, communism, Nazism, fascism are all on the left of that spectrum. They are all as authoritarian as it can get. They try to say that we are fascist, therefore we are somehow worse than all the people running around with communism flags. The further you go towards the right, the less government there is. I call myself an anarcho-capitalist. What I believe in is just consent. So the further you go to the right, the more consent there is. The anarchy, in a sense, people like to think that that means that there's no government at all, there's no rule. No, what it is we are all voluntarily interacting with each other. We are all bound by the same voluntary rules. The way we put it is the right for your fist to move stops at my face. That's kind of the ideal that is preached there. But the way they try to tell you is the further left you go, the better things are, and the further right you go, somehow you're more evil. And yet here I am as almost as anarchic as you can get, and all I want you to do is be able to live the life you want. That's all we want. Nobody knows how to live your life. Nobody knows. I don't know how to live my life. I certainly don't know how to live your life, so why should I allow this entity to tell you how to live your life? And so this basically just breaks it down. They want you to believe that only the fascists, the authoritarians, the totalitarians only exist on the right, and that is absolutely false. Communism is just as bad as fascism, just as bad as Nazism, and the great crime in America today is you can't wave a Nazi flag, you can't wave a fascist flag, but somehow it's okay to wave a communist flag. And so that's kind of what we push up against in our classrooms. That's kind of what we battle with on a day-to-day basis. Look, you guys, yeah, Nazism and fascism are evil, but so is that communism you keep talking about. So that's kind of just the battle that we constantly are having to fight on campuses. You think you're better than us, but really, this is just as bad as what you're accusing us of.
They're teaching you guys how to think.
Exactly.
Or they're teaching you what to think rather
Exactly.
than how to think, which
Exactly.
is a big, big problem in higher education. I know each one of you has kind of dealt with your own variation of that. I know I was taking Cameron up to one of our schools in Wyoming, and he forgot headphones this trip, and we're listening to his Zoom class, and I could not believe what was coming out of this professor's mouth. It was ridiculous. She was using critical race theory, which we all know is a great evil that's being taught in our classrooms. And I have been out of college for a year, and so I didn't think it could get any worse. It's getting worse. So we need to be here. Next, this is something I think only kind of the younger crowd would understand, but Big Gov's sus. Big Gov is suspicious. It comes from like a video game. A lot of people are playing on their iPhones these days. I would show you this next video, but basically I'm just gonna go around it. We say, the bigger the government, the smaller the citizen. Typically in chapter meetings, we will have them show a PragerU video. They'll do some sort of game. They will play a Charlie Kirk episode, all sorts of things. So that's kind of what we have here. Let's see.
The
It'll let
bigger
me
the
skip
government,
it.
the smaller the citizen.
All right, so this is why you need to get involved. This is the forefront of what is happening in America right now. On the right side, we actually have Colorado School of Mines. They are a brand new chartered chapter with us, and they have kind of a different campus. Typically, the rule is if you're an engineer, a science student, a math student, you kind of play with logic and facts a bit more, and you seem to get more conservative. At that school, people walk right on up to the table like nothing I've ever seen before. They take everything off the table, and they're so excited. That's not how it really is. Unfortunately, these guys, I think, have all gotten screamed at on their campus, but I won't let that frighten you. They're just words. They're just words, right? The people on campus are calling us racist, sexist, bigot, homophobe, and I will say something like, just because I want lower taxes, I'm a racist? Really? Give me something substantial, and the more questions you ask this person, the more fired up they will get. And the lower you keep your heart rate and the more questions you ask, they get madder, and then everybody else around is watching. And that's kind of the people we're trying to affect, is the people around us. I know you guys have seen the viral videos. It doesn't happen every day where we're getting yelled at and screamed at, but it is commonplace, and it seems like it's increasing. All right, next, I'm going to pick on Kevin again. One of the main ways we get out our messaging is through tabling. We'll take a table on campus, and we will put out all of our activism stuff. There's actually a setup table out there with kind of a mock-up of what we do. Oh my goodness. It's Israeli Exceptionalism Week, so a lot of our stuff is based on that this week. That's what you saw out on the table. The general rule is if you are not tabling, if you're not growing, you're shrinking. This is kind of a good rule to follow. We need to be out on campus at least 5 hours a week. Our campus coordinators know that. That's what they get paid for, but I think they do it for free because many of my activists are just volunteers, and some of them are even out there more than our CCs. But anyways, Kevin, I will let you kind of go over all the pink on the table. I don't know what that's about. No, I'm just picking on him. This was Valentine's Day, and so we did kind of based on that theme.
Yeah, we had a big government sucks Valentine's Day theme. So yeah, no, we just go out there and we just try to put out stuff that kind of really quickly gets the message across. We have like stickers and buttons and stuff that say, you know, socialism sucks, yay for 2A, like just gets across as quickly and succinctly as possible the message we're trying to get out there. And it's honestly the best part of the job because you're out there on campus, you're confronting people in person, you're meeting new people, you're getting to have, you know, new intriguing conversations every single day. Not a single tabling session goes by where I don't have some kind of memorable conversation with someone. Sometimes it's a slow day and I get like one person at a time and I can actually engage in a pretty deep philosophical conversation.
With COVID, that's been more commonplace with your guys' campus too.
That's been way more common. Before COVID, there would be times when I'm discussing with someone and we got like 20, 30 people gathered around us, like, you know, trying to intimidate us, trying to scare us. Not necessarily trying to scare us, but, you know, they're trying to provide the crowd, you know, make you feel like you're going up against the crowd, if you will. But it's in those moments when tabling is the most important because, like Lacey said, when you're having these conversations, a lot of times, you know, almost immediately I can tell if the person I'm discussing with is going to be, if it's going to be worth it or not. If it's just me and them, chances are, yeah, it's going to be worth it. But if it's someone that comes up and they're trying to get the crowd and they're trying to, like, you know, do a gotcha moment with one of us, that's when the conversations actually get really interesting because it then becomes, how can I talk to this person in a way where the people listening are going to be doing a lot of thinking themselves? And it's at that point when you start, you know, so you start asking the difficult questions. Like, for example, the COVID times have been really difficult. So they come up and they tell me if I'm not wearing a mask that I'm trying to kill their grandma. And I, you know.
I actually got told that I was a good case for abortion when I wasn't wearing my mask, and I hope I was taken out first in the next wave of the pandemic. So you can imagine how crazy it gets on campus.
Oh yeah, no, they get absolutely insane. I've been called white supremacist more times than I can count. But what it ends up coming down to is, like, as soon as they start having these conversations, they start making these accusations, it opens them up to so many questions. Like, oh, you know, they call me a racist, and I go, okay, why? Explain to me why I am a racist. And so they'll
they have
try
a really
to get
tough
into
time
it.
with that one, huh, Kevin? Why are you a racist? No, I'm just kidding.
It's like the worst thing you can ever do is like say, no, I'm not a racist, because like that immediately puts you on the defensive, that puts you in the position of having to prove you're not. So you always put the onus on them. But you ask the questions that necessary so that people around them are like, wait a second. So I was told that conservatives are all racist, but when asked why, there was no legitimate response. There was nothing they could actually say when questioned that actually shows that you know, that this person is a racist. You know, like one of the good examples is gun rights. So they'll tell me, you know, gun rights, guns, you know, because of the discrepancy between black ownership of guns and white ownership of guns, owning a gun is racist. And I just look at them and go, first and foremost, that's the craziest thing I've ever heard in my life. I didn't know that my right to bear arms somehow made me a white supremacist, but I am interested to know why you think that, you know, black people should not be allowed to own guns. I want to know why you think brown people should not be allowed to own guns. I want everybody to own guns. You're the only one standing here trying to tell me why we need stronger gun control in the cities like Chicago, like St. Louis, while simultaneously also trying to tell me that cops are hunting black people in the streets. So at the same time, you're trying to call me a racist for wanting law-abiding citizens to be armed. You're advocating for the exact policies that actually perpetuate their situation, make it so that the law-abiding citizens have no way to protect themselves. And these are the conversations you have because the person I'm talking to probably not going to listen, but I guarantee you there's like 3 or 4 people in that crowd that are listening. They're hearing what's being said, and they're actually starting to engage that critical thinking switch that colleges love to turn off nowadays.
And you guys are fantastic, each and every one of you. My favorite thing is I've watched Brian do it, I've watched Gabby do it, I've watched Amelia do it. When they're tabling, everybody thinks that they're not part of Turning Point because they're female, they look a little different. Conservatives don't care what you look like, how you identify. We just care that you're thinking. That's it. We just care that you're thinking. And so my favorite thing is Amelia, and she dresses very eclectic. She's got like, she's going to the thrift store, she's dressed to the nines, very, very Boulder, love it. And people come on up to her and they're like, oh yeah, this is crazy. And she's like, no, it's not. It's not crazy. And she makes the best conversations. So honestly, you guys are all fantastic. Next thing we do is we host meetings, and I'm going to go through this part a little fast. It's been really hard with COVID. We're doing a lot of it over Zoom and things like that, but these guys have all held very consistent chapter meetings. At the chapter meetings, you know, everybody is supposed to make their case here. The goal of tabling is to get people to come to the meetings as opposed to sitting there and arguing, and it does happen. If you have more people at the table, I think that's fine. However, if you just have one person sitting there, if it's a slow day, go for it. However, if it's not, let's try and get each person to come to a meeting, even if they differ with us politically, because we're about encouraging diversity of thought and that free speech as well. So during these meetings, I like to have about 15 minutes of PowerPoint time, then we open it up, and most college students are really tired of seeing PowerPoints and online stuff. Anyways, we often post a question on the board that even splits conservatives because we want these people to think. This is also how we bring more people into the movement. I know a lot of us, especially CSU, we actually have a chapter leader. His name's Hunter, super awesome. And he's just the social butterfly of the group. And he's just saying, I'm here because my friends are here. Now, he is a conservative. However, he comes to things to hang out with his friends. So we're making conservatism cool again. To borrow a phrase. Next is activism events. These guys do some really awesome stuff. We have a giant free speech ball. Daniel, one of our chapter leaders at CU Denver, has this. It's got a little patch on it because we put a hole in it. They get pretty messy on campus. We're rolling them everywhere, and they eventually disintegrate into pieces. But basically, we encourage everybody to write whatever they want politically, non-politically. I think we even saw a debate between what's better, chicken nuggets or chicken tenders. We even saw that on there, but they offer conversation. We're encouraging that free speech. Another thing, the guy on the right is actually from the East Coast, and they were doing paintball. We do Second Amendment, gun range days, all sorts of fun stuff. If you can tie it to a turning point value, often we're going to talk about it. We're going to do it. I know we've talked about Krav Maga and self-defense for Women's Empowerment Month in October of next year. We're actually having our female campus, UNC, probably going to be hosting that. So we like to make it campus specific. Obviously, UNC has a lot of teachers, has a lot of nurses, and so that is why we're doing it. Very heavy female population. Got to know your campus and know your audience. Next, campus events. We actually had some pretty good ones this semester. So we had Morgan Zeggers at CU Boulder, and we had Isabel Brown, who is a former chapter founder and leader at CSU. These guys are all up there, and I would go through it a little bit more, but I want to make sure we leave enough time for questions. They will present all sorts of speakers, whether they're big or small, drawing crowds and talking to whomever about conservatism. Isabel Brown made it very specific to CSU's campus because she wrote a book on that campus, what it was really like being a student at CSU. Morgan Zeggers, on the other hand, she is the founder of Young Americans Against Socialism. So we did for Valentine's Day, our I Heart Capitalism, and we talked all about that. So we like to base it on theme. We like to make it fun and inviting. Next, school's going to be out soon. We've got 2-3 weeks for you guys. You guys are going through finals. I know pulling them away right now has been a little difficult. They're like, Lacey, I have papers due. I'm like, sorry, we got to go affect change. And so we have our big Student Action Summit, Young Women's Leadership Summit, multiple conferences across the entire year, but summer is really our conference season, and it's a lot of fun. Next, I'm going to show this short video about our Student Action Summit, which happens every year in December.
The largest ever gathering of young conservatives in the history of our country.
You are the generation that will remember to unapologetically love America. You are the generation that will make conservatism cool again.
Good people sit back and don't get involved, bad things happen.
And when you have a small government, because you're right, big government sucks. Big government sucks.
Never, ever, ever back down. Never compromise. Stand up for what your beliefs are. Be free-thinking individuals. Never apologize for believing in liberty and freedom.
You ought to be the one choosing your future. You ought to be the one choosing your education. You ought to be the one with the freedom to speak, the freedom to worship, the freedom to keep and bear arms, the freedom to raise your children.
You're here because you know America needs you at this time.
Free minds mean a free people. We have no choice but to stand up for those rights, no matter the slings and arrows that come our way.
The President of the United States, Donald Trump. But I'm thrilled to be here tonight with thousands of proud, patriotic young Americans at Turning Point USA.
Our nation badly needs more young people like those here tonight. America will never be a socialist country. Right?
Never.
That USA chant is very common. It's often where I will walk in the mornings and they're singing like the Star Spangled Banner. It's kind of biblical in a sense. It's pretty cool. It's how you wish your country could still be. Funny thing about that video, I don't know if you caught this, but Sean Hannity's wearing a sweatshirt on stage. They're just like us, right? But yeah, these conferences are so fun, and we sell adult tickets as well. So keep an eye out for our newsletter. We will be sending more updates on that. We also have our Young Women's Leadership Summit. This is so much fun. Neither of the girls on stage have been, but this is actually how I got my start. I went to a conference. I saw Tommy Lahren and Ben Shapiro on the speaker list. I was like, she looks like me. I need to go. But really, I'm just a big Ben Shapiro fan. And I decided to go. I met some really good friends who I'm still friends with them. That's the thing about conservatives is like that little elephant in the room, so to speak. That's funny. That little elephant in the room is actually gone because everybody's conservative. So you can pretty much freely speak, kind of how it used to be. And you walk up to anybody in that line and they're nice to you. Like girls are actually nice. It's very strange. Not commonplace, but it happens. Anyways, I encourage anybody to talk to me after this, or Gabby, or any of the students on stage about any of our conferences. We are more than happy to have you, especially for Young Women's, because that's the next one coming up. We also have, oh goodness, we're not gonna listen to this guy because this is a super outdated video. We didn't have one in 2020 because of the pandemic, so it's unfortunate. We also have our Black Leadership Summit. This was so fun. Candace Owens kind of heads this up. We had it at the White House. That was a lot of fun. I really doubt we're gonna be invited back to the White House this time, but you never know. He surprises us. We have our Young Latino Leadership Summit. This just happened a few weeks back. One of the keynote speakers was Ted Cruz. He's wonderful. Our Teen Student Action Summit, it seems like the teenagers pretty much get everything they want. We had Donald Trump speak. I think it was the first time there. It was amazing. It was in DC. We're going to be doing some reconfiguration with conferences, but I can't reveal anything yet, so stay tuned. And so this is how we win the culture war. I kind of did this backwards. I went to a conference. You're supposed to start a chapter first. I was not told. I should have been. But basically, you start a chapter, and then you start tabling and recruiting, so you have people to go to your chapter meetings. And then at your chapter meetings, you're hosting those cool activism events, you're bonding, and then you're going to conferences as a celebratory thing. So, I know Cameron and Amelia. Actually, I met Amelia at a conference, but I know Cameron met Amelia on campus, but we've all bonded just by doing the multitude of different things. I think people don't realize how social people are. We've really figured that out in the past year. I really encourage these guys to do social events too. We just had In-N-Out before we came here, a conservative Christian company. That's another way to bond is through food. These college students love to eat pizza, so more power to them. Next, following us on social media, obviously the general Turning Point, but also TPUSA_Rockies for Instagram. I'm keeping y'all updated. This is my page that I use. I do a lot on my personal page, but I'm telling you day by day where we're at, what we're doing, what activism events are happening. And yeah, that's pretty much it for the PowerPoint version. Now I'm going to kind of transition over here, and I'm going to ask these guys some questions. So let's get reset. All right. So, Gabby, how did you get involved with Turning Point?
Yeah, so I got involved with Turning Point, go back in the time machine and think about it. I think I noticed, so when Kevin and Isabel Brown, who founded our chapter and who now works for Turning Point, first brought Charlie Kirk to campus, I knew it was happening, But I was kind of on the opposite end of it. I was in a group chat with a bunch of super lib theater majors at CSU. And so all I heard was like, oh, there's this white supremacist capitalist guy speaking on campus. We're going to go protest. And I was like, well, I don't really want to go protest. Like, what if I want to like listen? So that was...
Tell them. Tell them.
Oh, no. I told my dad, I was like, well, I don't know like who this guy is. I don't know what this organization is. I don't know what's going on, because all I heard from them was capitalism bad, white supremacy bad. And I was like, well, if they don't like it, it's probably something I will like. And that was kind of my start in becoming aware of what was going on my campus. I'm the black sheep and the elephant in every single room because I'm in the liberal performing arts. I have since left that major and gotten better friends. So that was when I
Well done, Gabby.
I love that for me too. They all hate me. Anyway. Since then, I got involved with a chapter. So Isabel's sister, Gabby, was in my ballet class. And she was like, are you conservative? And I was like, yeah, I'm conservative, you're conservative. And she's like, let's be friends. And I was like, okay. So she was president after Isabel, and then I started going to meetings, and then I met Kevin, and then we did Culture War. So similar-ish route. I did our photos for Culture War, and that's what got sent to Charlie and got posted on everyone's social media page for Kimberly Guilfoyle, and that was when it got going. I would say SAS that year, so SAS of 2019 was what absolutely lit the fire in me to come back to campus and look those people in the face who used to bully me and stand a little taller and not take their crap anymore. And I was like, listen, I don't care that you think I'm in the liberal arts and I should be voting this way, or that I'm a woman and I should be voting this way, or that I'm a minority and I should be voting this way. I don't care what you think, and you don't scare me anymore. And I think that's what's, conference is what really lights the fire. And I think CSU's campus in particular is interesting because we are an agricultural school, so like you can see a Republican when they walk by, they wear square-toe boots and work hats, so you know who's who, which is great. But then you also have the programmed liberal bots who are just like glued to CNN and won't take their face mask off, and just, it's a very strange juxtaposition we have on our campus. And I think I kind of get the worst of it in the performing arts and theater and dance and music. And so those are the people who kind of pushed me here, as I was like, well, you guys don't like me, and I'll find people who do like me, and I'll find a place that I belong in, that my voice is heard. And ever since then, they still have to work with me. I design with them, I perform with them, I dance with them, and they still have to deal with me every single day. But I'm just a little bit louder now.
I will say that many of us have lost friends on the panel just because we came out as conservative. Conservative coming out day is actually...
This is my coming out story.
This is your coming out story. But we've gained better friends. This is a network that spans across not only the Rockies territory, but also across all of Turning Point. I think it's really funny. I have friends in every single state now. I know that if I go to Utah, I have somebody to call up and have lunch with. So, making friends at a young age, and, you can go travel and stay at somebody's house. They can go bring you to their church, or you guys can go, I don't know, protest their crazy governor together. I don't know. Anyways, Kevin, how did you get involved? I know this story pretty well.
So, the year was 2018. It was fall.
Oh, here we go.
So for those of you who don't know me, which is all of you, I was a Bernie bro in 2016. I was. I was a super socialist. I was very angry at the world, if you will. And so between 2016 and 2018, I got introduced to Jordan Peterson, and I started really just thinking differently. And then it was about 3 weeks into class, I'm walking across campus, walking across the plaza, and I hear, "Do you love America?" Like, who's asking?
Who is that?
Depends. And there's this blonde girl who's just looking at me, and she goes, "Do you love America?" I'm like, "Well, yeah, of course." And she goes, "Come over here." And her name was Isabel Brown. And she was the liveliest, happiest person I've ever met in my life. And I sat there like at the table, interacting with all these people that were just so full of life and just so vibrant. They were all smiling. They were all happy to be there, which was very weird because, again, I have been surrounded by lefties for the first couple weeks, and I didn't see a smile the entire time. So I was... I immediately asked her, I was like, what are you guys doing? She goes, "We have Dennis Prager coming in a couple weeks." And I'm like, well, my dad made me listen to him every day for the first 13 years of my life. So I definitely want to hear that one. And that's kind of how I got into it. I went, I immediately volunteered for this event, and I was like, you know what, I want to be more involved. This is exactly what I want to do. I might not agree. At the time, I wouldn't have considered myself a conservative. I was very much just trying to figure myself out philosophically. And
we got you, didn't we, Kevin?
But But what I did think was true was that every voice deserves to, like, every opinion deserves to be heard. There is no reason why someone who is conservative should be scared to stand up and speak in class. And I felt that, you know, with my background, I have a duty to at least try to be someone that people can look to and be like, well, he's able to do it, so I can do it too. And I like, my whole goal, even if you disagree with me, has just been to try to at least inspire these kids in college to have the courage to speak up, to know that if you're gonna speak up, I guarantee you, there are people in this classroom that agree with you. And I've had it quite a few times now. There was one time I was, drinking non-alcoholic beverages late at the night on a Friday night. And I had some guy just randomly stop me. He goes, hey, you were in one of my poli-sci classes. I was like, yeah, which one? He tells me which one. He goes, I just want to thank you for being able to stand up against a teacher and make sure that he wasn't able to push the communist crap that he was trying to tell us. That, you know, this teacher was a socialist, and I realized at the moment, this is why I do this, and this is why I'm involved, and this is why it's so important, because these opinions, there's more people than we know. I was I was door knocking for Cory Gardner this summer. I worked for his campaign. And I had one lady, I knocked on the door, and you know, she goes, you're for Cory Gardner, and she looks at me and she goes, don't tell anybody else on this street, you know, you're not allowed to be conservative here. And I looked at her and go, you realize that every house on this entire street is Republican, and none of you know it.
Did they all say that? I feel like they did.
They like legitimately.
You
there
can
was
see
multiple
who's
houses on that district or on that street that they thought they were the only conservative, and that is their goal, and that is why it is so important to speak up on campus, to speak up in class, and to try to be at least some kind of foundation, because it's not like we're the minority opinion. We are at least right there at 50%, but they want you to think that you're alone.
Absolutely. And I say never sacrifice your values for who you are. I always say that I'm a Christian and then a conservative and then a Republican. My Christian faith is very important to me. I know you guys it's very important to you guys as well. They've done a wonderful job of not sacrificing their values. So Amelia, hopefully you can squeak out something. How did you get involved with Turning Point?
I don't know why today is the day that my voice decided not to work. It knew I was coming here, I guess. So I kind of want to talk about my involvement in high school, because I feel like that kind of sets me apart from these guys. I've been, obviously more involved in college, but in high school, I got a text from my friend. She was in student government with me, and she knew I was a conservative, and so she texted me, and she's like, hey, I know a lot of your friends are conservative. I really want to start a Turning Point chapter. And I had been a fan of Charlie Kirk, and I loved Turning Point. And so I kind of started with her, and starting up that chapter, it didn't have to be a big meeting every week. It was maybe 15 of us starting out in a classroom, and we would watch PragerU videos, and we would have a different theme every week. And we would always invite the kids that we knew were more liberal, because we wanted to foster those conversations. So, I remember one week we had, the theme was immigration. And so we watched a PragerU video on immigration, and this kid comes in, and he's looking to debate us. And so everyone was kind of laughing at me because I go up there and I'm like, and he's talking about how we hate immigration, you guys all hate immigration, all this stuff. And I go up to him and I go, I'm a first-generation American. Both my parents are immigrants. I love immigration. Like my grandparents, they had to learn. My grandmother learned English working in a laundromat, watching soap operas, on the TV in there. So I got
Did
to
his
kind of
head spin off his body? Did he freak out?
Oh yeah. Well, so he had immigrant parents too, and he was like, well, my family's here legally, and I was like, cool, mine too. I have no problem with you. I love that America is just kind of this pool of different cultures like that. That's awesome. And so, that's been one of my favorite parts about, kind of Turning Point, is that people have these preconceived notions about you. And, you get to kind of show that, that's not true. We're a welcoming group. And so I always talk about when I kind of found Turning Point at CU, I thought going to CU, I was like, there's no way that there's a Turning Point chapter in Boulder. Like, there's not one.
It's actually the biggest in the entire territory. Yeah. So I think that's a pretty
I was surprised
big
to hear that.
I heard it.
Yeah. Yeah, no, our chapter is awesome. And so I always talk about it as like my godsend moment because it was last semester and I'm walking through campus and I'm like having such a horrible day. And I walk past Fair and Field and I see Cam out there tabling. And
Got
I'm
his
like,
big smile out
I
there.
see his big
Hey, how
smile,
you doing?
his big gov sucks. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like that says Turning Point. And I run up to him and I go, is this Turning Point USA? And he goes, yes. And I'm like, I need to join right now. And I just take one of his cards and I fill out, my little slip. And so, kind of having that background from high school and, signing up and starting that chapter. And I went to their event at CSU that they've been talking about with Trump Jr. and Charlie Kirk and Kimberly Guilfoyle. And that kind of sparked something in me that was like, I love watching these people speak. And I got to go to SAS last year in 2020. And that just, sparked in me even more like how much I want to get involved. And so, Cam's been really awesome for me, helping me get involved as I can and helping me be vice president of our chapter. And so, so it's kind of been, our show that we've been trying to do as many events as we can in this crazy time. And we've been doing a lot of great work. So that's kind of how I got into it.
Honestly, I think they all do a very wonderful job. And the great thing about America, right, is that we all come from very different backgrounds, but we're united under the same front, that this is the greatest country in the history of the world. So that's a pretty big deal. Also next, Cameron O'Day, if you want to kind of give your experience.
My story as well.
Yeah, Cameron's got a good story. It's a little back and forth, but go for it.
Yeah, so I wish I got involved in high school. I've kind of lived all over, but the high school I went to, people rode their horses to high school sometimes, so we lived out. People weren't really worried about conservatism there. But I moved out to Boulder, and after playing sports was kind of my thing, and after I decided to kind of turn down playing collegiate sports, I was kind of looking for that family. And I was really connected with Greek life and academic stuff, and I kind of just made that my life. And you have a bunch of friends, right? Like I had hundreds of friends, and they were just like really meaningless relationships. And I grew up in a conservative home. People don't wonder if I'm conservative. I was the one person, people know I'll come in with my boots and stuff, but I was listening to the Charlie Kirk podcast one day, and he was talking about Turning Point. And I was listening to him talk about Turning Point, and I just felt like it was on my heart to look it up. And so I looked up Turning Point, and I just was like, I guarantee there's not a chapter at CU, right? No way. And so there is, and I sent out an email, and then I got this random text, and it was like, hey, this is Lacey. I'm like, this is weird. I don't even know if this is a real number. And
sorry.
No, so I answered it, and I had this conversation, and I was like, okay, this is kind of cool, like, whatever. I'm already a part of, different political clubs and different things like that, and pre-law, okay, cool. And so, the first conversation was okay. And so then I kind of I sat and prayed about it, meditated, and I was like, if this is what I should be doing, make the door completely open. Otherwise, I don't want to waste my time. And, I went to a meeting, I met the former president, and, after talking to them, I'm like, wow, this is really different. The people like each other for the most part, I know, I mean, 99.99, that's better than the mask protection, but, no,
That was good. That was good.
No, so yeah, I met them, and it was kind of cool because it was in a transition period where the previous chapter was moving on to help with the presidential campaign, and there was a lot of spots available. And so I was like, okay, yeah, whatever you guys need me to do, I'll help. And so they put me right in as the campus coordinator, okay? And so I have no idea what I'm doing, and I'm at,
I was like, hey, you want to be CC? He's like, yeah, sure, why not?
I have no idea what I'm doing. Obviously I grew up in a conservative home, but then here I am on campus and people are yelling at me and I have no idea what I'm doing. And then I started figuring it out, oh, okay, these conversations, how to have conversations that are don't turn into fist fights or things like that with people about politics. And it was really cool. And then, a few weeks later I became the chapter president. And, you know,
It was, no, seriously, he picked up like 300 contacts in an entire day at CU Boulder, so you can imagine why that was such a gradual shift up. That's a pretty big deal.
Yeah,
Even
I mean,
in COVID.
I mean, if I'm gonna do it, I'm gonna do it 100%. So I was pretty excited. So then we became the chapter president, and it was kind of a smaller club. COVID was tough, and it's been so cool. We've been able to connect with the GOP, and I've become a state delegate that way, and we've been able to connect with a lot of clubs like in Greek life, from academic clubs to sports teams, and we've been able to just have so many people be able to come just because we're real and we don't get canceled. And, you know, it's an environment where people are able to be themselves. And, you know, I lost so many friends in the process, and I gained so many more friends that were so much better quality, and it was like a family. You know, like the thing that I want to say about Turning Point is like, we have meetings, you know, we table, we do things like that, but we love hanging out together, just like going out to sports games and, you know, having game and movie nights. Like, we just love hanging out. It's a real family feel. And so I think that was something that was really special to me, and just grateful to be a part of it. And obviously, like, COVID's tough at CU. We had the 18 to 22-year-old lockdowns, but we've actually like grown more in the process of that, which I feel like is a real testament that like people are tired of what they're hearing. And I was always told, like, this is such a liberal campus, like, you're gonna see those people that, you know, you see those people that wear the Birkenstocks and smoke pot, and you wonder like what they're doing with their life.
Though. You never know.
Yeah, but you know, there's a few of those where you're like, but you know, the more you realize and the more you dig and the more you have conversations, you realize you're not the minority, you're actually the majority. Even in a place like CU, like, a lot of people really share those conservative values. They were just taught that those aren't conservative values, because free speech and, you know, free thought is not something that is as free as people think. And so it's been really cool seeing the chapter grow and progress, and it's been something I'm really grateful to be a part of.
That's something too, that Rocky's culture, that something I've really worked on. This is my first year in the field. I used to work in hiring before this, and actually the former founder, well, actually the founder, Isabel Brown, and we all used to be kind of friends, and I really liked that spirit, all of the chapter presidents all coming together. We were a bunch of girlfriends. Everybody's moved out to DC or Arizona, and so like these guys are my family now, but I really liked that feel, and I wanted to build on that. So they're able to have a network, which, you know, if Cameron writes a paper and he decides to write it like Bernie Sanders, Kevin's gonna walk right up to him or give him a call and say, stand your ground and make sure you don't compromise. You've got this. I'll take you out for a beer later. No, I'm just kidding. But they've got each other's back. I know it gets hard sometimes, especially when it's early mornings and late nights. But you guys work in cold and rain and snow and sleet. But you guys work incredibly hard. And I'm very proud of you. Now, Brian, I'm not cutting you off. Feel free to take as much time as you want. I like your story a lot. So.
All right. So to tell my story, we need to go back to 1975. No, we don't. But we do have to go back to around late 2015. I was at my local community college in New York, trying to figure out if college was the right thing for me. And I had a sociology class, and my sociology professor essentially taught me a view of the world in which, you know, America is evil, and we are essentially the root of all evil in the world. And if it weren't for America, the world would probably be all roses and unicorns. And I really believed it. And deep inside me, I wanted to do something to change this. And so I had a friend who was from Albania, and this guy, he used to be into politics. He was an independent, but he was a huge Trump supporter. Trump was coming, you know, up around that time when he was running for election, and he kind of started talking to me, and I used to tell him, I was like, dude, I don't think it's, it's not right what the United States is doing. And he's like, well, have you looked at it on your own outside of what your professor is telling you? Have you, done your own research? So we used to have arguments and conversations, and slowly I started to realize that maybe what my educators were telling me was not entirely true, but just their distorted version of reality. And so then I started doing my own research more and more, and that's how I came across Ben Shapiro, and I started listening to Ben Shapiro, and it's like just a light switch just went off in my head, right? I'm like, oh, wow. And it all made sense to me, right? And then moving forward to 2019, I'm in Colorado, and I need to finish my education. And I decided to go to UCCS. It's my first semester at UCCS. I said, well, I'm going to enroll in some clubs so that I can add that to my resume. And I had heard of Turning Point before. I had heard of Charlie Kirk. I always thought he was a very smart guy. And one of the clubs that came up in my search history was Turning Point USA. And I was like, oh, this is great. I also got College Republicans, actually. I got College Republicans before. I reached out to College Republicans, but I didn't get a response. And I was a little bit disappointed. Then that's when I came across Turning Point USA afterwards. And I got a response almost immediately from the previous president, whose name was also Brian. And he invited me to a meeting, and I'm not gonna lie, it was kind of sad. It was him, another guy, and myself.
That was a long time ago.
Yes.
I'm just realizing how far that was.
And, and I said, well, this is a great organization. They advocate for great things. I identify with this organization. And the more I learned, the more I realized that as an immigrant who came from Guatemala, this country is so great, and it just hurts that people that either come from places where I'm from or similar, they want to turn this country into the places they left. Or people that are from here that want to turn this country into the place that I left. And that's kind of what motivates me to be involved at Turning Point. And I told my president at the time, I was like, hey, we need to do something. Let's go tabling. We need to get more members. If you need a VP, let me know. Let's do something about it. And nothing really came from it until the end of the semester. So over the summer, around July, it's just great how it happened. On this afternoon, I'm sitting in front of my laptop, and I'm like, okay, I'm gonna start a YAF chapter at UCCS. And I go to the website, I start filling in the information. When I'm halfway through the information, my phone starts ringing, and it was Brandon Schubert, the previous regional manager of the Turning Point area for the Colorado region. And he's like, hey, Brian gave me your number. He said that you would be interested in being the president of the chapter coming next semester. Are you interested?
You're like, what?
I was like, what? I was like, you won't believe it, but I was just literally about to start a chapter of YAF. So yes, thank you.
He got you good, huh?
Yeah, and so, I became president. I went to the Chapter Leadership Summit, and I really saw what the organization is about and what we stand for. And it really gave me the voice that I so long searched for, and it allowed me to speak. Yes, I lost many friends in the process, but I did gain many other greater friends as a result from it.
I think too, I think a lot of us don't realize that, so the former regional manager, and we'll move on to questions here in 1 second, the former regional director, Brandon, I was actually connected, I was a student with Brian and Kevin, and so kind of the transition into field rep role, it's very strange. I'm just kind of trying to navigate it a little bit and what that looks like, because I feel like when I'm ordering you guys around, it's just
You're
like
not the boss of me.
Okay, your mic is off. But one quick thing, I'm gonna have you guys go all the way down the line. In one word, how can you describe your experience with Turning Point USA? Let's take 1 second. Do you have your word, Gabby? Okay, go for it.
Empowering.
Kevin? Quick. Skip.
No,
Pause.
skip me.
Pass.
Stop guessing it.
Family.
I was gonna do that. That's cute.
Liberating.
I like that one.
Oh my gosh.
I think family, you can just second
Family,
that. Yeah.
I'm taking Cam's.
You know, to me, it's just freedom.
Like that. That's good. Well, thank you guys so much. We can move on.
We're ready for Q&A. Can we say thank you? I am so encouraged. What a great group of young people. Thank you so much for coming.
No, thank you. Thank you.
So if you have a card that you would like someone to pick up, would you raise your hand or raise your card? And if you need a card, would you raise your hand and we'll pass one out to you? So my burning question that you brought up and you didn't answer was, what is better, chicken tenders or chicken nuggets?
Tendies.
That is exactly what we're still arguing about. We settled for
Tendies.
hamburgers. It
depends
seems to be the winner.
from
and
where.
it makes Polis mad. So
Okay.
we're really a big
Is it
fan.
Chick-fil-A or
Nuggets.
Cane's?
Yeah, the question is,
All right,
Cane's or
we have
Chick-fil-A, and
about,
we
oh
all
my
know
gosh,
that
look at all these cards. We probably are not going to get through all of these.
Oh my gosh.
we'll give
you
it a
guys have
go.
a lot of questions.
So I think the best way to do this is if I ask a question, like one of you answer, rather than going through the whole panel again. So I don't know, you can pick who can answer these questions, but the first one is, what advice do you have for young people to speak up in a classroom with a progressive teacher?
I can handle this one real quick.
Oh, go
Yeah.
for it. And then I'm going to have Amelia touch on it real quick because she has a little high school expertise.
Oh, I was just going to say that educate yourself. Educate yourself, educate yourself, educate yourself. If you're going to stand up, make sure you know at least a little bit about what you're talking about.
Yes, I like what he said. And also, so in high school, like, it was very accepted to be conservative. But also, you know, I had teachers where it was, like, not okay, and they were my favorite teachers. I had one teacher who went every morning, we would say the pledge in his class, and he would close his mouth and tell everyone to close their mouth at the part of the pledge where we say under God, because he doesn't think that should be in the pledge. And so I would always say it louder than the rest of the pledge in front of him.
Love that.
You know, hand on my heart. And he would give me the dirtiest look every day. And he was like one of my favorite teachers. Like, I loved him. But and even on the college campus, I have one TA who, in his class will go around and he'll ask everyone, what do you guys think makes a Trump supporter? And, they would say, uneducated, white, rich, racist, the whole plethora of things. And, then I thought he was going to give me such bad grades on everything. And so really just connecting with those teachers, having conversations with those teachers, and letting them know that you know what you're talking about. So don't let your teachers tell you that you don't know what you're talking about. You give them your own evidence. And you give them your 2 cents. I think as long as you have your facts backed up, your teacher can't tell you that you're wrong when you're presenting them with a fact. They can try to, but a fact is a fact.
Also, too, I would caution, just because somebody has a degree doesn't mean they're smarter than you. They just may be more disciplined than you.
They just wasted money on it and you didn't.
I know Cameron experienced this. We were tabling and this lady said, well, you don't know the First Amendment. You need to go to law school. I'm like, I know how to read. That should be enough. So don't be afraid. That's my advice.
Thank you. And so who at the university decides if you can display your messages or just kind of talk about maybe the politics? Like even with those teachers, are you ever concerned that they're going to, affect your grade? But answer that first part about who decides what you get to message or how do you handle that?
I'm going to have Gabby answer this one.
Right. And so I think for public schools, they have to let us have our constitutional rights,
Thomas
even though
Jefferson.
they begrudgingly. DU does not get those rights on campus, and we don't have our DU chapter leaders here, so Lacey might be able to speak to that. But on CSU's campus, they kind of have to let us. They designate a free speech zone as if it matters to us. So the plaza outside of the student center is supposedly where you get, and then there's even a stump. There's a giant tree stump that's cut off, and they were like, and when they give you a tour of the school, they're like, this is the free speech stump where you can stand on it and say anything you want. To someone who doesn't understand the First Amendment, you're like, wow, this is great. And if you understand the First Amendment, if you're educated, you're like, well,
Everything
what about
is a stump.
Yeah,
It's all the stump.
So thankfully, we are a public university, and they have to begrudgingly give us our rights. Otherwise, I think, similar to DU, we would have none.
But they try hard. I think they use COVID as an excuse to shut down free speech. And right now, we are actually going through a little bit of a legal issue right now. UNC. Will Witt actually spoke, and he took off his mask just because he was standing for his morals and values, and they were super mad at us, and they're trying to suspend one of our students now. So that's becoming a thing.
Okay. I think you may have already addressed this, but I'm going to circle back around to this. So how do you respond to other students who believe that America is evil and needs to be transformed by socialism?
Brian?
Yeah, as someone who has seen what it's like outside of the United States, after I'm done chuckling, I like to essentially, ask them, where would you like to go? If America is so evil and so racist, where would you like us to buy you a plane ticket to? Be sure to leave your passport on the way out. But in reality, America is supposedly so racist and so evil, but we want the entire world to come here. And there's only one way to put it. If America was the way they say it was, it would be different. But the freedoms that we have here are enjoyed nowhere else. The privileges that we have here are enjoyed nowhere else. This country is so great and so free. This is what I tell people, that you have to make up your own oppressions because you have nothing else to be unhappy about.
Seriously, I think Kevin was telling me earlier that he had somebody speak in his class and they were explaining to him why the sidewalk is racist. The sidewalk.
Denver's sidewalks, if you're not aware, are apparently racist. This is a big deal that's currently being taken care of by the city of Denver.
Are they not black or white enough? Or like, what's going on there?
I know we had some critical race theory lady come in and start talking to us, and she's explaining all the different things in Denver that are super racist. The sidewalks, apparently a disproportionate amount of black people get hit by cars walking off the sidewalk, so that makes the sidewalk racist.
They stretch it far, let me tell you.
What was really funny is when I asked her what she was going to do to address the 70% single motherhood rate in a lot of black communities, the fact that cities like Baltimore in 2016 had 14 public high schools that had 0 students able to read and do math at grade level, the fact that after the Black Panthers marched peacefully and righteously upon Capitol Hill in 1964, what followed was the single greatest disarmament of a population, of a minority population in American history. Oh, no answers to that, but don't worry. We're fixing the racist sidewalks, guys. Don't worry.
Gotta fix them.
So this is a practical question. Is there a Turning Point chapter at Pikes Peak Community College?
There actually is.
Yes.
There is.
So whoever asked that, maybe you want to be a chapter president.
Come find me afterwards. We're looking for new leadership. We have a few people graduating. So,
what is your best defense or question for someone who is pro-abortion?
So typically with Turning Point, we don't answer a lot of abortion questions. However, it does come up in a lot of our chapter meetings. I don't know if I want to answer this one just simply because we don't take a stance on most social issues. I know we have our own personal views. So you guys are more than welcome to address on your own personal issues. Amelia looks like she has a burning answer to this one.
Well, maybe not a burning answer, but I just would err Christians out there. If there is a pro-abortion, person kind of talking to you and trying to press that on you, I would err towards the side of not taking a Christian stance in arguing for it. There are so many pro-science and science-aired arguments against abortion, so I would err you to the side of not taking the Christian stance, just because generally, if they're not Christian, that argument.
It's an easier way to bring people in. This is why we say this, because you may have say it's an atheist at CU Boulder, and they agree with all the economic issues, and maybe they don't so much agree with our views on abortion. Let's talk about the economics first. That stuff comes. Eventually, we get to the values. We make it about, life, liberty, this pursuit of happiness, Thomas Jefferson and John Locke sort of ideas of state of nature. They start understanding those things, and once you get the values right, everything else kind of comes next.
Yeah.
So.
The way I usually go about it is it's super simple. You got to understand their religion. They're coming at your religion. Their religion is science, truth. So, you just ask them, when does life begin? 98% of biologists say at conception. You don't ever have to mention God in any of this, but the most important thing you can do out of all of this is keep it in the basis of the principle of we value life. I just care about life, because they're going to have to explain to you how something human is in fact not human. So you got to keep it calm, you got to keep it rational, and you got to keep it grounded in the kind of language that they will understand. As soon as you start bringing God into it, unfortunately, that kind of sways it. But there was one other tactic I always use on them, and I forget what it was.
I think there's another tool that's super important, especially for Christians, that we need to be more aggressive on. I know we like to be polite and nice about it, but one thing that is highly, highly effective and will really change the course of abortion conversations is showing them the true raw images of what abortion is. Yeah. You show them the procedures of how it's done and also what it looks like when they're dismembered on the table. It's gruesome and it's horrible, but
People really don't know.
Yeah, the Nazis were dependent on dehumanizing the Jews, and people who are pro-abortion are dependent on dehumanizing babies. So when you humanize it and show them this is their only baby picture and they're dismembered on the table, that's what's super, super effective in the pro-life movement.
And I think a lot of people kind of say that abortion is really going to be, our version of slavery. It's really sad. Disproportionately, the black population, the most amount of black babies.
The black population is stagnant.
It's really kind of sad. But yeah, next question, sorry.
Okay, so I have 3 cards here, all in green, same handwriting, so I'm assuming this is the same person. And I'm not going to be able to go through all of this because some of this is just pontificating and I don't really see a question. I'm also going to go out on a limb and say this person obviously doesn't agree with some of your opinions, but that's okay.
Come on, I love it.
Because we want to answer everyone's questions.
Absolutely.
So here's the question.
I'm glad you came.
How do you and your Turning Point group members ensure they are not being closed-minded and hearing opposite perspectives if you primarily engage with other conservatives?
Okay, so I think I get this right off the bat, and it is something I've kind of been teaching you guys. Kevin knows how to do it, Brian knows how to do it, Gabby, but specifically Amelia and Cameron, because they're kind of 2 newer chapter leaders. Now, first and foremost is I'm trying to reorient the conversation. If we can find one common thread that we agree about, free speech, which seems like this person is very on board with free speech. So that's problem number 1 out of the window. Let's find one thing we can agree on. If you don't even agree that America is the greatest country to exist, that's fine. We should all be able to speak our piece. We invite those people to our meetings. I'll say, you know what? If you have a few communist friends that you want to bring to our meeting, as long as you're not going to incite violence, come on over. Let's have a discussion. I've made it very clear with all of you guys that it is very, very, very important to hold true to your values, and this is one, letting everybody have their chance at the table.
Yeah, I like in my own chapter, I am the spitting image of that. I am a libertarian anarchist. I am not a conservative. I am a Christian, obviously, but I do not fall on the conservative side of things. I make sure these discussions happen. Anyone in my chapter can attest. I don't care what your beliefs are. The only thing I care about is if I ask why, can you actually give me a reason? And so that's how we do it. I'm actually really good friends with the president of the Democratic Socialists on campus. The trick is just getting people to come. Like, a lot of people are so scared of us that's what we do at tabling. We say, hey, look, we're not so different, you and I.
It's not that bad. And you can still go, as a girl, you can still go shoe shopping with somebody that is completely on the left. Now, however, they're probably going to argue about what the price of the shoes are, but that's something we'll take up with the individual private companies. But choice, right? Cameron, actually, I kind of want to get your take on this. What's that like for you at CU?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. And one of the things that has really helped our chapter is we've had so many people come up from other conservative groups because they've told me that, all they're doing is talking about things they agree about. And, anybody can go out for lunch or coffee and talk about things they agree about. What we try to do is have, discuss topics that maybe I don't necessarily agree with 100%, or, have people talk in our chapter meetings from different perspectives. And, we have people that have all sorts of different views, and maybe we have a few things that we agree on, But, what's helped us is we just find things we like in common. Like, I love shoe shopping, or we love going oh, that's, I love that fashion, or, oh, whose jersey is that? Is that Tom Brady? Like, really? Like, things like that.
Well,
And
that
then
was wrong,
you
but-
kind of get people open, and you kind of find things that they realize, like, we've had so many conversations that they realize, like, oh, we're actually really not that different. And just finding those commonalities is, even if it's, not economics right away, kind of helps.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think even conservatives, this is why I teach you guys to put questions up on the board that split the room, because even conservatives disagree on things. So some people think that we should have no abortion at all. We should have abortion up until the point of the heartbeat. The questions split rooms, and we want you guys to disagree because it fosters diversity of thought. That's what we're about. And also the person that asked this question, please come up to me. I would really like to talk to you. I'm not that scary. Neither are these guys.
Yes, she is.
I am not that scary. I'm a whole 5'4".
I'm
when
so
I don't
scared of
slouch, I really
Lacey.
need to work on that. But yeah.
Did you want to?
Could I add something?
Yeah, Brian, go for it.
Yeah, I was gonna say, it's a misconception that a lot of people hold, that conservatives, we are all in an echo chamber. You would not believe how many different ideas there are within conservatism. For example, in our club meetings here at UCCS, one of the things that we try to do at least once or twice a month to engage people is when we table and people really want to get into, very long conversations on specific things that they disagree with us on, we invite them to come to our meetings. Because every once or twice a month, one of our meetings, we do like a debate where we pose certain questions. And we try to find questions that even conservatives would disagree with each other on. And the rule is to try to have civil, peaceful, amicable discussions between people. And we try to invite those that disagree with us to challenge our ideas, right? To challenge our views, to question our beliefs. And we're always happy to have them. We're always happy to listen to other people's opinions as long as they come and they're respectful and, they respect our opinions as well. And you guys would not believe how successful that is and how great that is and how many great conversations we have managed to have had with people that disagree with us.
Yeah, I think you guys do a really great job. I really do.
Thank you. That was good. The next question is, are high schoolers being introduced to Turning Point USA?
Yes, actually, we have more high school chapters than we do college chapters. It's wonderful. We have actually started we are going to be making high school more prevalent in the future. I can't reveal anything, but we've hired a high school coordinator. She's kind of overseeing, and she's actually in high school. She's overseeing all the high school chapters, going around to different schools. It's hard right now because of COVID, so they're not really allowing me on campus, but other students they don't have an issue with. So Elizabeth is her name. She's wonderful, very organized as a high schooler, also going to Mullen, which is where Isabel Brown went. So I don't know what they're teaching at that school, but it's amazing. High schoolers are being introduced to Turning Point USA, and that's why we are really working on having that be a very specific goal. We have, I think it was like 500 chapters. We're looking for 1,000 by the end of this semester of just high school alone. We're growing.
Thank you. I have a few more questions, but I think they're redundant. I think you have already answered those. Any other questions? Because if not, I want to take the last 8 minutes to introduce someone to you. You all got a flyer when you came in. Eric, you want to come up here? This is Eric Davis, and I'm just going to give him a few minutes to close out our meeting here to talk about his upcoming event and whatever is on your heart.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate the time, Ann. Let's give these guys a hand of applause because the youth is our future, and I think that's kind of why I'm here. Long story, I won't get into too much of my detail, but I spent some time doing YWAM, Youth with a Mission. I came back. I prayed to God. I said, God, send me to the hardest place in the world. And he sent me back home to Colorado Springs, so I'm born and raised here. And I understand why now, I think 13 years later, why he sent me here. And I ran for a District 20 school board, so I'm also with Ted Misha, who does the school coalition and things like that. But when I was on campaign trail, basically what happened was I was going to all these meetings, and I was the youngest person at 30 at the time, by at least 30 years. And so it really started hurting me. I go, where are all the young people? And so I started the group Return to Liberty. I've worked with Brian here locally with UCCS chapter. And so one of the things we're kicking off right now is a high school prom, basically. So it really upset me. I also teach a martial arts school here in town. It's called 3T Martial Arts. And I have a lot of high school students. And they started coming to me and they're like, Sensei, they're not doing prom. They're not doing prom. What's going on here? And that hurts my heart so much for these young people because this is something they live for. This is the memories, and they'll never get this back. It's not like they can come back next year for the prom. Last year's got canceled as well, and it just made me hurting so hard. So I'm running a prom May 22nd for the high schools here in Colorado Springs. But I want to take a second, too. I want to talk more about how important the youth engagement really is. One thing I want you guys to notice from all these guys' story is it's all relationship-based. It's all relationship-based. And if you notice, each one of them came to Turning Point because of a relationship. And that's the thing we have to do with the youth. We have to understand we got to win their hearts before we win their minds. And if we don't win their hearts, there's no way we're going to convince them on all the educational stuff, right? So I want to encourage you guys. One of the problems I think we have in our generation and what's going on with the young people is we're trying to just information. But the young people especially need to have some fun. They need to connect on fun levels. They need to be able to engage on something that's not political. Politics, especially during COVID, is just swarming them. And in some ways that's great because they're now going, why? What's going on? They're asking the questions. But you got to engage them in the fun-hearted type of things. And that's kind of one of the reasons I'm throwing the prom on May 22nd, because I want to connect with them on just hey, let me serve you, let me take care of you. Now, obviously, I'm never going to waste any opportunity. I'm going to definitely influence. Maybe we can talk about tabling, right? Because we still need to influence. But I always look at an 80-20%. 80% win their hearts, win their friendships, and then identify the leaders. Because those are the leaders that are going to change the generation. Just like these guys right here are the leaders in their school. Each one of these have risen up to take on that burden of leadership. And so our job on the older side of things is to support them, is to come behind them, to get their back. Whether that's mentorship, financing, helping them do these kind of things, that's our responsibility. So I just want to thank you guys for giving me this time. May 22nd, again, we're running prom. It's going to be at Fervent Church on Academy in North Carefree. I'm looking for a lot of volunteers because it's going to be a really big event. My goal is about 300 to 400 high schoolers. It's open to all of Colorado Springs high schoolers, so any junior or senior that wants to go on. We'll be having, so the prom issue, so the high schools are doing different things. So one of the issues they are doing proms, a lot of high schools are, but one of the things why I'm still running it is because a lot of the high schoolers, or a lot of the high schools, they are doing masks, they're doing social distancing, only in your cohort groups, outside in the parking lot. And I just go, why are you even doing prom? Nothing there. So our job, what we're doing is we're going to be throwing one for any high school juniors and seniors that want to do it for their 2021 prom. We're going to have a lot of cool activities, a lot of fun things. We're going to have a live band there. But we need a lot of volunteers because there is a lot of work to be done. So we're putting the team together. So if you're interested in helping me out, you want to know more information, please just come and let me know. I'll just hang out somewhere over that way, I guess. So great. Thank you so much, Ann.
Wow, thank you. So I hope that many of us, I'm planning on going. In fact, I don't know, Eric, did you mention it's 50s? 50s, yay. So I'm going to get my poodle skirt out and buff off my, what were they called? Yeah, those. Put ponytail in and off I go. Anyway, we want to say thank you again to our guests. Could we just give them a warm thank you? And if you don't mind, may I pray over you? So, Father, in the name of Jesus, I just thank you for these young people. I thank you for their hearts, Lord. I thank you for their devotion, their commitment, their obedience, Lord. I pray protection over them, the blood of Jesus over them. I thank you, Father, that you are opening doors that only you can open and that you are shutting doors that only you can shut. So give them everything that they need. I declare over them right now that they prosper at whatever they put their hands to. And I bless them, give them traveling mercies as they all go home, as well as our audience. And we just give you all the praise, Lord. It is for your glory that we do all of this. In Jesus' name, amen. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.